Alright, I'm continuing in my series on the Frege's Grundlagen, and we're in part 1, views of certain writers on the nature of arithmetical propositions, and we're on the part where he's talking about as whether numerical formulae are provable or not. He says first off that we must distinguish numerical formulae such as 2 plus 3 equals 5, which deal with particular numbers, from general laws, which hold good for all numbers. So it's the issue of proving out whether we're going to prove out things about particular numbers. That's 2 plus 2 equals 4. Proving out particular things about particular numbers, or proving out laws among all numbers. He's not really too interested with proving things out, proving numerical formulae with particular numbers. He's interested in axioms that go over the whole entire numbers. And people like Kant and Leibniz and Mill, who say something about how there is something that is observed in number, he's kind of going to be attacking that in this part of the book. The former about the particular numbers are held by philosophers to be unprovable and immediately self-evident, like axioms. So we have Kant, who says that they are unprovable and synthetic, but hesitates to call them axioms because they are not general and because a number of them are infinite. Kant can call on our intuition of fingers or points for support, thus running the risk of making these propositions appear to be empirical, contrary to his own expressed opinion. So Kant uses uses the term intuition, and that can make his transcendental aesthetic part of his critique of pure reason to be kind of not entirely that clear. Now, this book is not clear either. Like, he's clearer, I think, than maybe Kant or Mill. I still have yet to do any videos on the philosophy of mathematics of Mill. But he does say things that, can be a little quippy, or like he quips sometimes. Or he'll say something that, like, well, what the hell, what the hell does he mean by that? So we have, how we can have 2 plus 1 equals 3. That is something that we can do. We can view that. We can take two things and then take another thing, put them together, and we have 3. That is something that we can verify with our eyes, and that is something empirical to us. However, people like Leibniz and Mill have tried to say that any kind of number is somewhat verifiable through experience, and Mill kind of also says that mathematics are inductive, which he thinks is just nuts. Frege does, so, and I have to kind of agree. Let's see here. So, Frege says, is it self-evident that 135,664 plus 37,863 equals 173,527? No, it isn't. But Kant was saying that we can take small numbers and kind of call on intuition to kind of verify those things. But he came short of saying that his he came short of contradicting himself and saying that mathematics is a empirical thing, which isn't really what he said that much, because he said it's synthetic a priori, and that's a quandary in itself, as you might know. It is awkward to make a fundamental distinction between small and large numbers, because the whole thing is that if you can't really say that you can't really say that numbers are empirical and by observation and thus inductive, because we can have 2 plus 1 equals 3, and 3 plus 1 equals 4, 4 plus 1 equals 5, and so on, until we have numbers like 135,536, there's nothing that we can verify about that. And that's kind of where he says that it is awkward to make a fundamental distinction between small and large numbers, especially as it would scarcely be possible to draw any sharp boundary between them. So that makes me think of what is called the Sorites paradox. If I have a bean and I keep putting it in a pile, you know, for the first while I will have a small pile of beans. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will have a small pile of beans, but if I do it long enough, I will have a large pile of beans. But when do I have where's the line? Where's the line where I have a small pile between the line where I have a large pile? And there isn't really a line for that. You can't make fundamental distinctions about that. So you can't really, if you're Leibniz or Mill or even Kant, you can't say that because 2 and 1 being 3 is something that I can verify empirically, and I can use those numbers to make bigger numbers, and thus it is empirical. Because of that paradox, you can't really do that. I guess that's kind of what Frege is saying, but that's interesting. And now he discusses Leibniz, who says it is not an immediate truth that 2 and 2 are 4, provided it be granted that 4 signifies 3 and 1. It can be proved as follows: 2 is 1 and 1, 3 is 2 and 1, 4 is 3 and 1. Axiom: if equals be substituted for equals, the equality remains. So Leibniz had the idea of doing all mathematical proofs through that, and thus having some kind of observational factor within mathematics and arithmetic. And through things like 2 is 1 and 1, 3 is 2 and 1, 4 is 3 and 1, and kind of going up and up and up, that's how you can kind of have some kind of, according to these people, observational content in a big number like 135,664. And the truth is that Frege is kind of going to, criticize this whole thing. And, the truth is that it's not the best thing anyway. It might well be supposed that numerical formulae would be synthetic or analytic a posteriori or a priori, according as the general laws on which their proofs depend on are so. That's something where you don't know entirely what he's saying or what he's trying to get at. Okay. At first, indeed, he seems to mean to base the science like Leibniz on definitions. Definitions which you can base on experience, and that's how you build that up, and thus you have some kind of empirical, observational aspect of mathematics. This spark of sound sense is no sooner lit than extinguished, thanks to his preconception that all knowledge is empirical. He informs us, in fact, that these definitions are not definitions in the logical sense. Not only do they fix the meaning of a term, but they also assert along with it a observed matter of fact. But what in the world can be observed fact or physical fact, which is asserted in the definition of the number 777,864? Nothing. Of all the whole wealth of physical facts in his Apocalypse, Mill names for us only a solitary one, in which he holds is asserted in the definition of the number 3. Mill says that collections of objects exist. So we have, if you can see above my finger, the little collection, if you will, which I think is not, that doesn't do anything for anyone. Mill did not also illustrate that the physical facts underlying the numbers 0 and 1. And then Frege says on the next page that no one has ever seen or touched 0 pebbles. Now, according to Mill, the calculations do not follow from the definition if itself, but from the observed matter of fact. Actually, there is a gap in his proof, consisting in the omission of the brackets between 5 plus 2 equals 7. And Mill and Leibniz both overlooked these gaps in their proofs. If the definition of each individual number did really assert a special physical fact, then we should never be able to sufficiently to admire for his knowledge of nature a man who calculates with 9-figure numbers. Okay. And Mill thinks that we should not make definitions like 2 equals 1 plus 1, or 3 equals 2 plus 1, and 4 equals 3 plus 1, and so on and on and on, until and unless the facts he refers to have been observed. And I think that this also goes for science too, not just mathematics. That I don't know. That's just I would think about opening a big can of whoop ass as this applies to science as well, and mathematics. That I could talk for so long about that. I talk about that in epistemology and philosophy of science, and about the positivists and how they are all trying to rely on observation to do everything, and they can't assert something without observation. And don't get me wrong, observation is important, but he's just like I can't even collect my thoughts right now because it's, I don't know. I guess read Popper is all I want to say about that. The number 0 for Mill, given he didn't define it, would be a puzzle. Mill would explain 0 as something that has no sense. So Frege says that perhaps it is supposed that the physical facts would only be used for these smaller numbers, say up to 10, while the remaining numbers could be constructed out of these. How could arithmetic exist if we could distinguish nothing with whatever by means of our senses, or only 3 things at most? And that's kind of where he ends the whole thing, by kind of bashing numerical formulae of particular numbers, and that we can, through proofs and axioms, prove out more general laws than these particular ones, and that it's not really sensible to demand that for any number that we have a physical fact or observational fact that is attached to it. And I would have to agree. So if you think I've left something out, or should have explained something, or if you have a question about this part, comment below, and I would gladly discuss with you. Or if you think I've messed something up, or any reason, comment below. Thank you.